I would like to present a solution to teachers in Fort Lauderdale, Florida public schools regarding the problem of anti-Semitism amongst the students. The following is a speech I would give to teachers gathered in school auditoriums. Hello, my name is Paulette Addisman. I'd like to address the problem of anti-Semitism amongst your students and provide you with a step-by-step solution. Anti-Semitism is hostility or hatred directed towards Jewish people, typically by Gentiles, people who are not Jewish. The hostility is directed towards Jews' religion and culture. They may be disliked because they look different. Some Christians may disfavor them because they do not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. Jewish students may become the target of name-calling and violence. They may be discriminated against because their behavior is different due to cultural differences. One theory that supports this world-real problem is racism. Racism is defined as all members of a particular race possess the same characteristics and abilities, rendering them to being inferior or superior to other races. Anti-Semitism defines Gentiles as being superior to Jews. Anti-Semitic Gentile students treat Jewish students unfairly or cause them to suffer verbal and or physical abuse. Research that supports this theory is a research study connected to racism and was conducted in a lab at JSU in 2017. It was an experiment in which people were connected to an electrical apparatus that monitored their reactions to certain pictures, proving people had unconscious biased opinion of other races. Also, research by David and Wagner in 1996 and 2007 showed discrimination is associated with prejudice. Also, research by Tylcinski and Barakat and Bogeno in 2007 revealed misaddressed emails from Arab names and cities that came to Israeli students were less likely to be informed of their error than if sender was from their own group, Israeli. These research sources were found in the textbook titled Exploring Social Psychology, 7th edition, published by McGraw-Hill. I'd like to also bring to your attention the fact that research shows racism in schools adversely affects students, teachers, and the entire school. The NSW project, Racism No Way, revealed students who experience racism may be afraid to attend school, not do well academically, not make friends, stay away from school, be aggressive or disruptive, reject their own culture, or may be confused by their own identity. Teachers who witness this racism may not go to work, may be anxious or depressed, lose confidence and enjoyment in teaching. The entire school is affected because they make friends only with students of their own race. Anti-Semitic Gentile students do not make friends with Jewish students. Gentile students who are anti-Semitic get into fight with Jewish students. There are conflicts between teachers and students. According to an article titled Being Targeted by Stereotypes and Prejudice Affects Self-Control and Academic Performance in a publication, Science Daily 2006, researchers at Toronto University and NYU did a number of studies in 2006 revealing the stress and pressure caused by prejudice and discrimination adversely affected the students' control over their academic lives. The solution to preventing and stopping anti-Semitism is to teach students about racism and anti-Semitism. First, I would encourage you as teachers to form cooperative learning groups to work on projects about anti-Semitism and racism. For example, a project about the adverse effects anti-Semitism has on Jews' mental and physical health, or a project about how academic performance is adversely affected by racism. These groups would help break down barriers caused by racism and prejudice. As a group, students, Jews and Gentiles, would work together toward mutual goals. Communication would also improve. They would learn the benefit of teamwork and collective efforts. It would help students to see each other as equals and being on the same team. The difference between Jewish and Gentile students would be lessened, and Jewish and Gentile students would learn to respect one another as they work together. Secondly, I'd ask you to inspect your educational materials to make certain they send the message of societies being multicultural instead of monocultural. For example, photos of students of different races working side by side, or photos of minorities holding positions of authority. Images of monoculturalism could give the impression that some races are superior to other races. Also, the introduction of other educational materials, such as films, handouts, and literature that teach about racism and anti-Semitism should be used. And for example, film could be shown about riots and destruction caused by racism. This information about cooperative learning groups and educational materials was found in the article titled Eliminating Racism in the Classroom by Richard Morgan. Thirdly, I would encourage you to teach about racism and anti-Semitism. Introduce the concepts into your courses such as psychology, sociology, and history. For example, refer to the problem of slavery and how it adversely affected society and led to the Civil War, or how racism and anti-Semitism has prevented people from getting employment or living in peace and free from verbal and physical abuse. Define the concept and explain the adverse effects racism and anti-Semitism has had on individuals and society as a whole. Welcome feedback and questions from your students. Make it personable by asking students how racism and anti-Semitism has affected their lives. Ask them for suggestions and possible solutions to ending racism and anti-Semitism. For example, one of the issues that might arise when solutions are introduced is some students might ignore lessons of racism. To solve this problem, teachers could motivate students by rewarding them when they did well on lessons about racism and anti-Semitism, and give them extra credit for projects and research on racism and anti-Semitism. Another issue is parents may feel their children are not guilty of this behavior. Teachers could send letters to the parents informing them of this problem and specific occurrences involving anti-Semitism or racism to prove the problem does exist, and invite the parents to meet with teachers if they have questions or concerns. Students might rebel against actions taken to change racist and anti-Semitic behavior. So teachers and administrators could hold an assembly explaining the problem that has been occurring in the school and the need for action. They could mention specific events of discrimination, such as violence or verbal abuse. They could also cite the various research that shows that students don't do as well academically if they suffer from discrimination. Students may not cooperate in cooperative learning groups. Teachers could refer these students to school counselors to determine the reasons for this attitude and behavior and deal with any underlying issues the student may have. Counselors could deal with the student on a personal level and encourage a student to cooperate and explain the benefits of participating in these groups. Students who are suffering from discrimination or are experiencing anti-Semitism as Jewish students could talk to the counselors about their problems, and the counselors could help them cope and deal with this particular problem and help them to cope with what they may be experiencing as they are the target of this discrimination. Students may have questions of the counselors and the counselors could address these issues during their session.